Well, I hope you're ready for today because I am so excited for what we are about to paint. Just recently, I've been experimenting a bit with painting watercolors on black paper. The effects I'm discovering with this are so fun and absolutely stunning. Now, today's video is actually my first time ever painting with metallic paints besides some little color swatches here and there. So I still have a lot to learn, but if this painting catches your eye at all, I hope you'll join me for this tutorial today because we are going to have the time of our lives giving this a try. Now, really quickly, before we get into painting this shimmery butterfly, I do have a quick update on my upcoming Craftamo subscription boxes, which many of you have been asking about. The good news is that we are looking at maybe just 1 or 2 months to launch this project. It's been a lot of work, but I think you are really going to enjoy what I have in store for you. These paintings that I'm showing here are just a few of the exclusive tutorials that will come along with the subscription. And you know, this is really what I like to call watercolor lessons in a box, along with the exclusive step-by-step tutorial on how to paint each one of these. You will also be getting all of the supplies and materials that you need to be able to do so. I should also mention that the tutorials I'm creating for these are at a nice, steady, real-time pace so that you can literally follow right along with everything I do as I do it. Anyway, we're talking through these 12 months, you'll receive 24 Craftamo brushes, 12 outlines and painting lessons, 48 paint colors and paper, plus some special extra gifts that will be included with these art lessons in the box. You can sign up to be notified when these become available, which will be soon, by clicking on my product page link in the description of this video. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's move on to today's painting. Now, of course, we are going to be painting watercolors on black, so we need some black watercolor paper. If you happen to miss my tutorial from a couple of weeks ago, I tried out this paper for the first time with some white watercolor paints, and like I say, the effects are stunning. So I just had to give some metallics a try as well. This brand is called Stonehenge, and this pad contains 8 by 10 sheets, although I believe they have other sizes as well. Then if you'd rather paint this butterfly freehanded, that is totally an option here. The shape and design is really not super complicated if that's the way you prefer to paint. I personally like having some sort of guide or outline, so I will be using this little drawing here that I created for this piece, and if you're interested in this, I will have it available in my Etsy shop. I'll put a link for that in the description of this video, along with links and information about any of the other supplies you see me using today. Now, because my black watercolor paper is 8 by 10, I cut my butterfly paper outline to be the same size because I will be transferring different parts of this outline at different times today. And this way I'll be able to put the outline back in the same spot each time. Okay, now for the transferring part. Last week I went over several ways that you can transfer an image onto watercolor paper, so you can go back and watch that for more information or other ways to do this if you'd like to learn more. I think for today the best way would be either to use some sort of carbon paper. This black one I have here transferred okay, but it wasn't quite as visible, especially for you as the viewer, so I'm not going to use that right now, but I am actually going to pull that out a little bit later on. There actually is also such a thing as white carbon paper that I hear works pretty good, but since I don't have any of that myself right now, today I'm just going to color the backside area of this butterfly with a soft 6B pencil, and I actually won't be covering the entire area. I found that the paints tend to cover up a lot of the lines as we go, so some of those thin vein lines on the wings I'm actually not worrying about doing right now. We'll transfer those on later. Then after I've got some graphite on the paper, I'll just turn it over and get the paper all evened up here. Then I'll trace over the tops of the lines. And again, I'm really just focusing on the main outlines, not the thin vein lines yet. Okay, now this might be hard for you to see as the viewer. I'll try to shine it in the light so you can see it a little bit better. But at this point, I have a nice shiny gray pencil line outlining the butterfly. Next up, I'll just pull out my metallic paint set. This is really my very first set of metallic paints, but so far I really like them. Pretty colors, and from what I've tested out, they show up really nicely on black paper. Like I say, I'm pretty new at this though, so I'd love to hear what brands of metallics that you like and that you feel are the best. I've also got some clean water, and I think I am going to tape my paper down with some artist tape to help with some of the warping today. Next up, we need a paper towel and then, of course, some brushes. You can use whatever sizes you feel like would work well for this. I will be using 2 round brushes today, a larger number 8 round for the larger spaces on the wings, and then a smaller number 1 round. These are both brushes that are going to be coming out with my subscription boxes. I really like this number 1 round because it has such a nice pointy tip to it, so it can really paint in some nice thin lines, but it also is tapered so perfectly that it can also paint thicker lines as well, which will be perfect for the lines we need to be painting on the butterfly wings later on. And you, of course, can use whatever colors you'd like or that you have on hand. I'll be using sort of a gradient of colors for my butterfly wings, starting with a bluish green color, then a darker blue, next up a nice dark purple, and lastly a dark bright pink. Now, before I jump right into putting some paint down on my page, I'm just going to rub a little bit of water into the colors that I want to use with this piece. This is just going to help soften them up a little bit. These particular paints are fairly hard until you get some water on there. While I let that water sit for just a few seconds, let's use the larger number 8 round, take some clean water, and just paint a wet layer of water on the upper left section of the butterfly's wing. After I've got it nice and wet with a layer of water, we can start putting in some of the paint next. I'll be painting these in the same order that I listed off earlier, starting with the lighter bluish green color right around the innermost part of the wing closest to the butterfly's body. Next up, I'll take some of the darker blue and start adding that in here, blending it in a little bit with that blue-green color. Like I say, this is really my first time painting a whole piece with metallics, so I'm still learning a lot on how best to do this myself. But it does seem that the more concentrated paint is better and it shows more and shines brighter. I also feel like it acts a little bit different than normal watercolor paints, and maybe it's just the brand I'm using, I don't know, but these paints don't tend to naturally bleed together quite as much as regular watercolor paints, so I am having to use the brush a little bit more to blend the colors together. After I've got the blue placed in more of the center area of the wing, then I can take some of the dark purple and add that to the tip of the wing, again blending it into the blue a little ways. Now to really finish this off, I'll add the bright pink just along the very tip or edge of the wing, blending it into the purple. Don't you think that's a pretty good gradient of colors we have here? I'll go ahead and paint in the other side in this exact same way as we have just done, and I'm hoping you can see these colors and paints okay on the camera. Metallic paints are a little bit tricky in that there is a certain position when tilted into a light source that makes them really shimmer and shine the most. It happens to be a very cloudy and rainy day today, so the sunshine is not coming through my window here as well, so I don't know that the paint is shining as much as I would like, but hopefully you can see it well enough to get the idea. I really hope you're enjoying this tutorial so far. It sure has been fun for me to experiment with a different style of form of watercolor painting. I have just thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you are too. If you find that you do like my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss out on any more of my upcoming weekly tutorials. Okay, well done. Now, that wing for me turned out a little bit more streaky looking, I think, but you know what? That doesn't really matter too much in the end. We're going to be painting vein lines and details right over the top of this, and that will make any imperfections not quite as noticeable. Now, we might want to let those wings dry just a little bit before we paint the bottom areas in, but while we wait, let's change things up a little bit. I'm going to throw a little bit of warm colors along some of the sections of the bottom wings. Maybe I'll try some orange and a darker orange or more reddish color. I'll paint this small section with water first and then paint in the orange color, filling in half to maybe 3/4 of the space. Then I'll transition to the darker reddish orange color to blend it in and finish it off. Okay, that's pretty good. I think that will add a really fun contrast to this piece. I'll just paint in the other side in the same way. Maybe while I wait for those little sections to dry just a little bit, I'll pull out the smaller #1 round brush and take a touch of that bluish green color and paint in the antennas really quickly. Okay, great job. I think I'm ready to paint the bottom portions of the wings now, but I do want to make sure everything is nice and dry first. So to speed up that process a little bit, I'm going to pull out my hairdryer. All right, now that that is dry, I'll go ahead and paint in the bottom portions of each of these wings in the same way as we did the upper wings with the same order of colors. And as I was working on this, I was wondering what other subjects would be fun to try with metallic paints. I'd love for you to help me brainstorm a little bit. I thought maybe a hummingbird could be really pretty, or maybe even just a plain fluffy feather or something. If you have some thoughts or ideas, I'd love to hear what you've tried or what you think might work well. Okay, this looks pretty good, I think. Hopefully you are liking how yours is turning out as well. I kind of last minute decided to do this next part. This wasn't in my original plan, but I think it might be fun to try out and maybe add in some splatter marks on here. I'll just take a scrap piece of paper that I was using to test out some color combinations and techniques for some of these tutorials, and I'm going to take that and cover up the butterfly with it. Then I'll take some of the lighter blue-green color and load up my brush and just tap it against another to create some nice little splatter marks. And I don't think you want too many of these, maybe just a few in the corners. That is actually a really fun addition, though I may need to add in a few more strategically larger place dots of this color with my brush as well. There, I think that looks pretty good. While I wait for the wings to finish drying completely, I'll go ahead and paint in the body of the butterfly next. Now, since this is a smaller space, I'll switch over to the smaller brush to make it a little bit easier. I would like to try a bit of a two-toned effect on the body here, so maybe I'll put in some lighter blue-green color more off to the right side of each one of these sections, and then I'll add in some of the darker blue onto the left sides. Let's see how that goes. Okay, not too bad. And in fact, that is all that we need these metallic paints for. So let's put them off to the side and pull out our regular palette of watercolor paints. And next we're going to paint in the vein lines and details on the butterfly. Now, there are a few ways you can do this next part, so just pick whichever works best for you. You can paint in the thin black vein lines on the butterfly wings by just freehanding them, maybe using the outline as sort of a reference to show how it might look or where to paint them in. I am actually going to go ahead and untape this and put the outline right back on the top here in the same position as it was when I first put the outline on the black paper, and I might even put down a tiny bit of tape to just hold it together. Then I'll actually use some of that black carbon paper that I showed you at the beginning and place that on here between these two pages and use it to trace the lines of the butterfly wings. Now, I did try just using the graphite that I had colored previously on the back of the outline, and it really didn't show as well as I liked. So that's why I chose to use the carbon paper this time. But another thing you could do is just take a pencil, use the outline as sort of a guide, and just freehand draw an approximate area where you might like the lines to go. Really just whatever works for you. Okay, hopefully you can see now as I pull that off, I have some light lines drawn on my butterfly wings that I can now easily follow along with and just paint right over with some black paint. I'll just use the small #1 round brush and some nice dark concentrated ivory black for this. Maybe I'll start with more of the thick lines first, and I can just make these more thick by simply pushing down a little bit harder on the bristles. And because I untaped my paper now, I can turn my page in any way that I need to make it a little bit easier to paint these in. Okay, I think that's good for the thick lines. I'll just continue on and paint in the more thin vein lines now using just the tip of the brush. These little details really finish off the look of this butterfly very nicely. Now, the body of the butterfly actually looks pretty good just as it is, but if you want to, you can add in a few lines in here as well. Maybe some vertical lines on the upper section and horizontal lines on the bottom section. All right, great job. Now, like I said, you really kind of have to tip the painting into a sweet spot of light to really make these metallic paints shimmer. Let's see if I can get them to show off a bit on camera. This is probably one of those things that looks better in person, but hopefully you get the idea. Well, I think that's it for today's tutorial. I'm so glad you joined me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe, like me, even learned something new. If you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.